Welcome to the Bourbon Friday show, where every week we take a short break, try a new bourbon, and meet somebody awesome from the St. Louis startup scene. My name's Nick Niehaus, I'm your host, and today I'm going to be interviewing Jeff Mazur, the Executive Director of LaunchCode. So Jeff, welcome to the Bourbon Friday show.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, of course. So first question, of course, is just going to be tell us about LaunchCode. What's it all about?
Yeah, so LaunchCode is a nonprofit. We're just coming up on our 5th anniversary, founded here in St. Louis with a mission of helping close the tech talent gap. So if you look at labor market statistics, you'll find that there are literally hundreds of thousands of unfilled tech jobs in the US. You look at 2020, there'll be about 1.1 million unfilled tech jobs.
Wow.
And these are really good jobs by and large that provide good wages, a good opportunity for people to start a career. And they're sitting open because there aren't ample pathways that get people prepared for those sorts of careers and give people those skills. So the traditional pathways that people have used are often very costly and have very high barrier to entry. So LaunchCode exists to help solve those problems. And we do that two primary ways.
Okay.
We provide free, accessible training, job-focused training in coding. So we teach people to code. We teach them for free. And we teach them in an accessible format so that people who have daytime work responsibilities or low-wage work or part-time work can still access the program and get skills. That's one key thread of what we do.
Okay.
The other piece is on the job placement side. So it's one thing to give people skills, but that goes only so far if you can't help them step into an actual job and a career. So LaunchCode works with about 500 employer partners across the markets we work, and we help connect people who have skills, but not traditional credentials, to employers who are looking for people who are talented and who have skills, but who don't know how to access people who are coming from non-traditional learning channels. So what LaunchCode has done is provided free training and then provided a pathway into a career with employers for these jobs. And that's helped us start about 1,400 careers for developers over our 5 years of existence to date. That's in a nutshell what we do. There's lots of pieces and components, and as need changes and industry changes, we're always adding more programs and doing new things to help try and serve that need. But that's the long and short of it.
Cool. Okay. So let me take a step back and ask you, obviously you guys are about 5 years in.
Yeah.
How did it get started? Was this a particular individual need you were trying to address, or did you see an overall problem?
Yeah. So this comes really from an industry problem. And the guy who founded LaunchCode and whose idea it was, a famous St. Louis name, Jim McKelvey, who's one of the founders of Square, the mobile payment system company. And really the genesis of LaunchCode was that in the early days of Square, as Jim was trying to help build that company, he wanted to see and have a presence for software developers working for Square here in St. Louis. He's a St. Louis guy, this is his hometown, and he wanted to see a piece of that work happen here for Square in St. Louis. So he went around and he was finding developers everywhere he could, mostly stealing them from other companies here in town. That's the way the industry works.
Yeah.
And even while doing that, he still couldn't find people at the rate that he needed in order to grow the company with the speed they wanted to grow it. And so ultimately they found that having that development office for Square here in St. Louis wasn't viable. And all that work moved to San Francisco with the rest of the company. And now, years later, it's a $40 billion company. And many of us here in St. Louis, and certainly Jim, would have liked for more of that to be here in St. Louis, supporting this economy and this community. It didn't happen. But he took away from that this idea that there's got to be a way for a community like St. Louis, where there's lots of talented people, lots of people who are here already and want to be here, where we can get those people connected to the skills and the connectivity to employment that they need to actually fill those jobs. And so LaunchCode was birthed from that idea. And it was very simple. Before LaunchCode ever did any training or anything at all, Jim said, the big problem here is that people don't get in the door because they don't look like what many companies expect a programmer to look like. They don't have the 4-year college degree in computer science. They don't have 2 to 3 years of experience having worked. And that keeps people from being able to step inside the door. What Jim said is that's exactly the wrong approach. That's unduly focused on credentials. It's unduly focused on the name of the school that you came from. It's unduly focused on the people who you know and your connections. And that, frankly, those aren't the best proxies for someone's ability to be an actual contributor to a company.
True.
That skill is really the thing that you should worry about and care about. And so his theory was, we'll build a really solid evaluation, technical evaluation. So we'll find people who have taught themselves, or they've learned through an online program, or they've learned through YouTube videos, or they've learned some other way, but that hasn't allowed them to step into the industry. And we'll evaluate them, and we'll make sure that their technical skills are strong. And we'll make sure that they've built a project that can demonstrate to an employer that they have the chops that it takes to be an effective employee. And if we can get somebody to meet all of the criteria that we set out in this evaluation, then we can feel really comfortable saying this person has the LaunchCode stamp of approval, and you, employer, who trusts us as LaunchCode, you can be sure that this person is going to do a good job for you. So bring them on, give them a chance, and see how it goes. And then some of the other innovations were really around how do you take some of the risk out of the employer end for bringing somebody on from an unfamiliar channel. And so using tools like apprenticeship, where in the LaunchCode model, somebody's going to go to work for 90 to 120 days for the employer as an apprentice, and the employer over that time can be certain that that person has what it takes in order to do the job well before they make a final decision to bring that person on as a full-time
kind of a trial
employee.
Yeah.
Sort of, yeah.
Okay.
And that's good from the employer perspective because they really understand more fully who the person is and what they're getting. And it's really good from the apprentice's perspective too, because they're getting real-world experience where even in the worst-case scenario where it doesn't work out with that employer, they will have got over that period 3 to 4 months of actual experience working in a real shop and building more skills and being able to bootstrap that into the next opportunity. So those are the innovations that Jim said, hey, if you apply these to this problem, that we should be able to start to solve that here in St. Louis. And those are the same sort of principles and programs and applications that we're now helping apply in places like Miami and Tampa and Kansas City and some other places to come in the future, probably because the same problem exists in those places and the same theory works.
Cool. So who do you see as kind of the who do you tend to attract here? I guess what's the profile of the person who's a good fit for LaunchCode?
Totally. Mostly it's people who are really interested in tech and really driven to be in tech, and that takes a lot of different forms. Oftentimes it's somebody who's a tinkerer. Somebody who likes to take stuff apart and put it back together is oftentimes someone who's just predestined to be a launch coder, to be a developer in many instances. People who are really good at sitting with a problem. If you're somebody who is working on something and you don't have an answer right away and you get frustrated and you just want to walk away from it, that's probably not going to be the best fit. Other people who are people who, this is really hard, and they work on it, they make progress, they step away from it, but they come back. People who have that stick-to-itiveness and who are willing to just grind on a problem until they get it right or keep trying new things until it works. Those are people who have the right constitution to do really well in LaunchCode's programs and typically become really effective programmers and developers as well.
Cool.
Everybody's different, and there's thousands of launch coders out there, and each one has their own individual story. So you see people who came into our program because they never had the chance to go to college. You see people who came into our program because they went to college for a little bit but never finished, and now they need that career pathway. We see people who got a college degree in a non-technical field and aren't finding the fulfillment that they thought they might. So I went to college and I got an English degree, and now I can't find that academic world job, and so I'm working at FedEx 23 hours a week, and that's not really what I want to do. I got to do something else. I already went to college, I got the degree, I've got the debt, I can't really go back and get another degree now. I'm already kind of, I'm confined, and so I need something else. And so LaunchCode for those people are a way to build a new skill for free and to access something different that their previous experience hasn't allowed them to access. We have people who had technical jobs in the past, who worked in software development 15 years ago, but left the industry. They became a parent. They went in the military. Their skills deteriorated to a point where they were no longer applicable in today's marketplace. And they came back to LaunchCode for a refresh, to build a new skill, to learn a language that they hadn't learned before, to get connectivity to an employer in an employment landscape that changed drastically from what they were used to, in the 90s.
Oh, I'm sure.
So,
very different.
So all those people are different varieties of LaunchCoder that we've seen. And it goes to show that there's no cookie cutter person. I think for a long time there was this notion that exists and still exists a lot today, that there are some small portion of people who were born to code. They have it hardwired into their brain, and it's only those people who can do that work. And I think we're finding every day that that's false, that this is a skill that can be learned like almost any other skill. And that certain people are probably predisposed to be better at it than others. But if you're willing to take the time to put in the work and really care about succeeding in it, then you can do it.
Cool. Okay. So one thing that kind of stands out to me here is, the traditional path to this career was to go to a 4-year school, right? Lots of money, 4-year time commitment, obviously. How does LaunchCode essentially replace that with something that's free and takes a lot less time? Like, how can you be confident these people are coming out, comparable to these college grads?
Yeah. So again, like I said before, if you build a program that's focused really on skills and on teaching to skills and then evaluating for skills, rather than focused on credential attainment, then we think that's where the big difference is. So you see this all the time, and I want to be clear. LaunchCode exists as a supplement to and as another tool in the arsenal along with higher education. So we don't in any way, shape, or form seek to replace higher ed. Higher ed is always going to be there. It needs to be there. It needs to do better, and we need more of it in order to fill this tech gap. But the incentives around traditional higher education and LaunchCode are very, very different. If you're a provider of higher education, your incentive is to have people come into your program and pay you in order to get the learning. That's where generate. And yes, you want people to come out of your programs who are in a way that leaves them well versed to do a job for industry. But your benefit, your revenue, such as it is not tied to your ability to put people in a job or give people a skill that industry actually needs. LaunchCode's model is exactly reversed. We charge nothing to participants, so we have zero incentive just to try and get people in the door and sell them something. Our revenue stream comes when we successfully place someone with an employer, and so our incentives are aligned to provide people with the precise skill that employers today are asking for, to get those people those skills quickly so that we can get them to market and that employers can take advantage of that skill. So we think it's just another approach that needs to be added to the ecosystem of approaches that are needed. We know that higher education has to do more, has to do better, and they're working hard at doing that. But we also think there's a whole world of people out there who just aren't a right fit for the higher education model. They don't have the money to put in. They're people who aren't. They're not geared to saying, I'm going to go and I'm going to spend 20 hours a week in a classroom in a traditional learning model. I need to do something different. And so LaunchCode is an option for those folks. So it's really about bolstering the entirety of pathways that exist in any market to give to meet people where they are and to let people find a path that actually gets them to a place where they can be successful and contribute to the larger tech ecosystem.
Cool. And I would imagine by having the employers kind of driving what you're teaching, it also makes things a lot more efficient, right?
Totally.
Getting them what they want.
We've got two sides, two threads, like I mentioned at the top. On one side, there's the education piece where we're teaching people to code. At the very same time, we've got a whole other infrastructure at LaunchCode who are people who all they do is interface with our employer partners. And what those people are doing every day is they're saying, Nick, you're hiring for 3 junior developers. What are the skills that they need? What are you looking for? What do these people have to have? And they're putting all that information in our system so that across these 500 employers, we have real-time data on what employers are hiring for today, what job recs are in our system, what skills are they asking for. So each time we run a new class, we can gear that class precisely to what employers are asking for, whether it's the core language that we're teaching, whether it's the frameworks and other things that employers are wanting added in. We can kind of thread that needle and build our programs and constantly iterate and evolve them in a direction of where employers are right now. So it's another difference between the way that programs get developed in the higher education landscape versus the way LaunchCode works. It takes oftentimes at many institutions of higher education 18 months to really build a new course, sometimes far longer, and articulate a new curriculum. And sometimes in the tech industry, 18 months later, you need something new now by the time you've actually gone to market with that. And so we pride ourselves on being nimble and being agile enough to move new trainings and new developments and new technologies quickly enough to really help employers at the speed that they need help.
Cool. So one question I have is, obviously this is something you mentioned that is much more accessible to people that, college may not have been able to go to a school like that, right?
Yeah.
Do you do anything in particular? I know that in the tech industry, there's, a lot less women, there's a lot less minorities than the general population. Are you doing anything to kind of encourage those people to join the program?
Yeah, absolutely. We think a big part of just growing the pool of tech talent broadly is to make sure we meet people where they are and that we're giving people opportunities to learn in a place in a way that they feel comfortable, that they feel accepted. And so there's a lot of different ways to do this. One of the most visible ways over history that LaunchCode has done this here in St. Louis has been through a program called Coder Girl. And that's a program that's for women by women. And it's teaching the same skills by and large from a technical standpoint that we teach in one of our other core programs like LC 101. But it's also about all the other pieces that go along with helping women enter an industry where, as you said, typically women have been pushed to the margins and haven't been represented in the same way that men have. And so by having mentors who, all of the program is volunteer run and volunteer taught, having mentors who've gone through this particular experience already as a woman, and they've navigated the industry to get where they are and to become a developer, they can share those learnings. And not just the instructors, but women sharing their experience together in a learning environment to talk about the unique challenges that they oftentimes face, whether it's in a workplace or in a learning environment, are really powerful things. One of the things that you see across the tech industry and across many industries is this imposter syndrome idea, right? It's that I am working in this industry and I don't look like or feel like the other people that I see around me, and so I feel as though I do not belong. And Coder Girl is a really powerful tool for starting to break down that imposter syndrome. No, here are all these women who are doing this work. Here's a room full of 130 women who look like me and who have the same experiences as me, and we are able to do this. We are supposed to be in this room. We are supposed to be in these places and doing this work.
Cool, very good.
Yeah.
So, kind of moving beyond, the program itself. So, I know you have the training, then you have this apprenticeship, right?
Yeah. Yes.
So, somebody gets into the workforce, and let's say they're looking to continue their education. Are there more programs through LaunchCode that they should come back to, or are there other programs they should maybe graduate into down the road? I mean, how does that work?
So, one of the core principles that we stress to all our learners is that you're going to go through a LaunchCode education program, and that program may take you 28 weeks to complete.
Okay.
You are not going to learn everything you need to know to be a developer for your career over the course of 28 weeks. Our job is to get you in that door and to get you a level of skill that makes you ready to go into that job, and then start the process of learning lots and lots more, right? So we're pretty closely confined to getting people to that level of readiness to step into the industry, but also inculcating them with the idea that you're going to have to be a lifelong learner, right? You don't have that credential that oftentimes people can fall back on and say, I have the CS degree from Stanford and I'll always be able to let that carry through my career. You're going to have to be driven to continue to learn because the industry is changing, and for you to maintain your value, you're going to have to change with the industry. So while we don't provide those programs, we do try and instill in every one of our learners and graduates that this is just the beginning of the process. It's not the end. And work with your employer. Your employer wants you to learn new skills. They get additional value if you can learn new things and new tech stack and all of this. So seize those opportunities and continue to grow as an employee, and you'll do well. It's possible that in the future we'll do some more future learning. One of the places that we've done a lot of innovation in the last year to 15 months is in, it's still programming that's geared to get people into their first job, but with a focus sometimes on more niche technologies that are more specialized. So particularly where we have employer partners who are very anxious to bring people in who have skills that are hard to find, like COBOL is one that's actually become oddly prevalent among many employers today, because there's a lot of COBOL code that exists out there. And COBOL developers, many of them are approaching retirement age. So we build programs to help build that skill on top of the core skills that we develop in our LC 101 or Coder Girl program. So that's something that we're doing more and more of because the industry is demanding it. The industry is saying, we need people that have the skill. Hey, can you at LaunchCode help people build this skill on top of their full stack development chops? And we say, yeah, we can do that. Innovation is about finding the things that are needed at that moment in the industry and trying to fill that niche, fill that gap. And so I suspect we'll continue to do a lot more of that as we grow and mature.
Cool. All right. Well, so if somebody's looking to get involved, right? They're either looking to apply as a student, or maybe they want to make a donation or be a supporter. Do you have any events or anything coming up that they could come kind of check you guys out?
I'm glad you asked me.
Yeah, give you a nice plug there.
Yeah,
right?
thank you.
Set it up.
We've got our annual event, which is called Geek Gala.
Okay.
It is geeks. It's not actually a gala in the traditional sense. It's like pretty casual. There's like Jumbo Jenga and cornhole and free beer and all that kind of thing. But Geek Gala is a celebration of another anniversary of LaunchCode's work. We're, as you said, our 5th anniversary. We've got a very tight and small program that's focused on just people who have benefited from our program over the years and succeeded. And people are going to hear them talk a little bit about where they come from and where they are and where they got because of LaunchCode. Okay. But by and large, it's an opportunity to buy a general admission ticket for $25 that supports our programming, helps more people get into the field and get this skilling. And it's always been a really great time, a great event. Food trucks and free beer from Anheuser-Busch and other sponsors.
Cool.
And just an opportunity to talk with people who are in tech see people who are going through the program now, see people from the innovation community and the business community who support LaunchCode. So it's always a great time. It's at our Mentor Center, which is at Del Mar and Euclid here in St. Louis City. So I'd encourage anybody to go to launchcode.org or go to bidr.com, bidr.com/events/Geek Gala.
Okay.
And you can go on there and purchase a general admission ticket for $25 or a VIP ticket for $100 and come out and join us on Thursday, October 11th. It's going to be a great time.
Very awesome. Cool. All right, well, we got a couple minutes left, so now it's time to shift a little bit. We got the bourbon here we got to learn about. So I'm going to invite Eric back on the show here. Eric is the founder of Bourbon Friday itself, so he's kind of a legend around.
Legend.
So what are we drinking today, Eric?
So today we have Urban Bourbon, and this is something that I didn't even know existed until a few months ago, where a friend of mine and I went to dinner at Square One Brewery over in Lafayette Square, and we were standing at the host thing, or the host station. What is this? So I felt like this is so Square One Brewery also has a distillery. It's called Spirit of St. Louis. So figuring LaunchCode starting here in St. Louis, may as well have a bourbon.
Right on.
Now this, I went there today to pick up a bottle. They happen to have a bottle or a barrel they found in the back. It was 10 years old. So there are 50 bottles of this ever created.
Wow.
So I just figured we'd bring it on and have something special on the show.
Yeah, that's
Right on.
awesome. Well, thank you for sharing it with us.
Yeah.
So we got another minute or two left, and I know there's been actually some progress in terms of the Bourbon Friday event. We're doing some partnerships. You want to kind of tell everybody about what we're doing?
Absolutely. So we've been wanting to increase this event and the attendance for this event, and so we've been reaching out to St. Louis Fashion Fund and Kovo, Industrious, and LaunchCode to invite the members and those communities here for Bourbon Friday, because we really want to build St. Louis, and we want to share the ideas, and that's really how Bourbon Friday all started. We want to share ideas, experiences with each other, and really build up this community.
Awesome.
Very cool.
Cool. So if somebody wants to join us and they just show up, or we got a procedure in place for that?
Sure. You just go to facebook.com/Bourbon Friday. You like the page, and we'll reach out to you and get you on there. And of course, Kovo and Industrious, LaunchCode, and Fashion Fund, they have an open invitation.
All right. Very cool. All right.
Thank you.
Sounds great. So I think we're about time to wrap up at this point. Eric, thanks for joining us. Jeff, we appreciate you coming on the show today, of
My
course.
great pleasure.
For those of you watching, a couple of people we'd like to thank, obviously T-Rex for hosting us here on the 5th floor, and then also EQ for streaming through their Facebook page and providing all the support for the show. And then I'd also like to thank Vanessa Lobo, who's my business partner at Connect Marketing, who's the producer on the show. She does a great job every week. So thank you for tuning in. Every Friday at 4:30, we go live here at T-Rex for the Bourbon Friday show. Please tune in again next week, and we'll talk to you then.